right, so today we're going to dive into something pretty intense. We're taking a look at revealing the truth, understanding family law from a man's perspective. It's written by Conrad Reicher, and he claims to have seen firsthand how the family court system can really fail men. He's aiming this book, especially guys who are already familiar with red pill thinking.
Interesting. So is this book like a legal guide then? Or is it more like, opinion and personal stories?
Well, it's a little bit of both, actually.
Oh, okay.
He combines legal advice with personal stories and observations to make his case for what he calls a war on men.
A war on men.
Yeah, and he really focuses on how he sees it playing out, especially in the family court system.
I see. So he's kind of coming at this from like a men's rights perspective.
Yeah, you could definitely say that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shy away from, strong opinions.
Right.
Like right off the bat, he dives into some serious issues he sees men facing, like parental alienation, false accusations against men in court, and that whole idea of toxic masculinity, which he thinks is often misunderstood and used unfairly against men.
Huh. So he's tackling some pretty controversial topics right from the get-go.
He is, and he doesn't let up. He even throws out a statistic that 90% of child support payments are made by fathers, even when custody is shared. Wow. And he gives an example of this guy named John, who has to pay 70% of his income in child support, even though he shares custody with his ex.
That's a huge chunk of his income.
Exactly. And he uses stories like John's to highlight the financial burden that he believes a lot of men experience.
So he's really painting a picture of how he sees the system working against men, especially financially.
Exactly. And then he goes even further when he talks about gender equality. He straight up calls it a myth and says society needs to recognize the biological differences between men and women.
Oh, wow. He's not holding back at all.
Nope, not at all. You can tell he really wants to challenge what he sees as the typical feminist narrative.
It's interesting because he's bringing up this concept of a war on men and then linking it to the idea of gender equality being a myth. It seems like he's trying to connect these ideas and present an alternative perspective.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's definitely trying to shift the conversation and get people thinking about these issues from a different angle.
So if we're talking about a war on men, what exactly does he mean by that? And how does he back up those claims?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. He argues that this war is most evident in family courts, where he says men are routinely denied due process and face these false allegations that are often just accepted without question.
So he's saying that men are basically being railroaded by the system.
That's his argument. He brings up cases of men who have been totally financially ruined by what he claims are unfair child support orders. Men who've lost custody of their children based on what he says are unproven allegations, and men who've been just emotionally destroyed by the whole system.
It sounds like he's painting a pretty bleak picture.
He is,
Yeah.
But does he offer any solutions? Or is he just kind of, pointing out the problem?
Well, he definitely calls for action. He encourages men to, really educate themselves on their legal rights, especially in family court, and to seek out support from communities that share similar views.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom. He's actually trying to empower men to take control of the situation.
Exactly.
And that seems to lead right into his discussion of the red pill philosophy, which we touched on earlier. He seems to think it's especially relevant for men dealing with these family law issues.
Right. And he talks about it as like a way of seeing the world, a way of challenging the mainstream narratives about gender and relationships, particularly the ones that, he feels dominate conversations around family court.
So he's suggesting that red pill thinking can help men understand what's really going on and give them tools to deal with the system that they see as rigged against them.
Exactly. He even talks about his own experience finding support in red pill communities. But it's worth noting that he also really emphasizes the importance of rational discourse, critical thinking, and avoiding those extreme viewpoints.
That's a good point. It sounds like he's advocating for an informed and thoughtful approach rather than just, blind anger or resentment.
Absolutely. He wants men to be aware of the challenges, but also to be equipped to deal with them constructively.
Now, this idea of traditional gender roles seems to be a pretty big part of his argument. He seems to think that men are naturally suited for certain roles in society, like leadership and protection, while women are better suited for others, like, nurturing and caregiving.
Right. He sees this as like a natural order that's been disrupted by what he calls the push for forced gender equality. He argues that this disruption has actually harmed both men and women and contributed to the breakdown of the family structure.
He even uses examples of communities like the Amish and Orthodox Jews, who he sees as thriving because they've maintained those traditional roles. It's like he's saying, look, this system works, so why are we trying to change it?
That's a good way to put it. He's not just critiquing the current system. He's actually offering an alternative, one that he believes is rooted in natural law and has a proven track record.
This definitely raises some interesting questions about the roles of men and women in modern society.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this book so compelling. It really challenges you to think critically about these issues and to consider different perspectives.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about the war on men, the red pill philosophy, and the author's views on gender roles and traditional values. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this so far. What are some of the things that stand out to you?
Well, what strikes me is his passion for the subject. He clearly believes that men are facing this crisis, and he's not afraid to express his opinions, even if they're controversial.
I agree. He's definitely not holding back, but I also appreciate that he's not just complaining. He's actually offering solutions. He's encouraging men to take action, educate themselves, build communities, and fight for their rights.
That's a really important point. He's not just pointing fingers, he's actually empowering men to create change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We'll be back in part 2 to delve deeper into some of the specific issues that he raises, like parental alienation and the financial consequences of divorce.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to unpack here. Picking up where we left off, I think you'll find the author's take on parental alienation particularly disturbing.
Yeah, parental alienation.
He calls it a silent epidemic. And he argues that it's one of the most damaging aspects of this whole war on men that he keeps describing.
Yeah, he really paints a vivid picture of how a parent, usually the mother, can manipulate a child, into rejecting the other parent. And he doesn't hold back on the emotional impact this has both on the parent and the child.
Right, it's like the child becomes this pawn in this bigger conflict.
Yeah.
And he claims that the family court system often just doesn't recognize it or address it effectively, which just, makes the whole thing even worse.
He even goes so far as to suggest that some mothers intentionally use parental alienation as a tactic.
Oh, wow.
To gain an advantage in custody disputes, knowing that it's hard to prove and even harder to undo.
So it's like a strategic move.
Right.
That's kind of messed up.
And he uses some really heartbreaking stories to illustrate his point. Cases of fathers who have been falsely accused of abuse and denied access to their children, and children who have been basically brainwashed into believing their fathers are monsters.
That's just awful.
It is. It's a sobering reminder that sometimes the kids are the ones who get caught in the crossfire of these really intense conflicts. But it's interesting that he doesn't just leave it at that. He actually provides some pretty specific advice for fathers who might be facing this.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So what does he suggest?
Well, he stresses the importance of documenting everything, maintaining a consistent and loving presence in the child's life, and seeking legal counsel from attorneys who specialize in fathers' rights.
So like finding people who really understand the issues that men face in these situations.
Exactly. He also recommends connecting with support groups and other fathers who have gone through similar.
That makes sense. Having that kind of support network can be so crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, don't just sit back and take it.
Yeah.
Fight for your rights and for your relationship with your children.
That's a powerful message.
It is. And that seemed to tie back into his discussion of the red pill philosophy. He sees it as a way for men to kind of wake up to the realities of these situations and to develop strategies for protecting themselves and their families.
So it's like a framework for understanding and navigating these complex challenges.
Exactly. He even talks about how men can use the red pill to understand, the dynamics of power and manipulation in family courts,
Yeah.
and to recognize the tactics that might be used against them.
So it's about being aware and prepared.
Right. He also shares his own personal experience of finding solace in red pill communities where he felt understood and supported by other men who were going through the same things. But he's also careful to warn against extremism or blindly following any ideology.
That's an important caveat. It's about thinking critically and not just accepting everything you hear.
Exactly. He stresses the importance of critical thinking and, having open discussions, even when those discussions are challenging your own beliefs.
That's how we grow and learn.
Yeah, right? It's about being open to different perspectives and being willing to question your own assumptions.
I like that. It's a more nuanced approach than just, blindly following a particular ideology.
Exactly. This focus on community seems to be a recurring theme throughout the book. He seems to believe that men need to band together and support each other, especially in a world that he sees as, increasingly hostile towards them.
Yeah, I can see how that would be important. Feeling like you're not alone in this.
Right. He talks a lot about the importance of traditional male friendship.
Okay.
And how they can provide a sense of belonging and purpose. He even goes so far as to suggest that the decline of these close male bonds has contributed to the rise of what he calls the soft man.
Soft man.
Yeah, it's a term he uses to describe men who he believes are passive, lacking in assertiveness and have lost touch with their masculine core.
So he's concerned that men are becoming too, passive and not embracing their masculinity.
Exactly. He sees it as a negative trend that's weakening men and making them more vulnerable.
And he links this back to the decline of those traditional male bonds.
Right. He believes that men need other men in their lives, not just to commiserate with, but to challenge and inspire each other to, become better versions of themselves.
So it's about brotherhood and accountability.
Exactly. He also ties this whole concept of masculinity to traditional religious values,
Okay.
arguing that faith can provide a framework for men to understand their roles in society and their responsibilities to their families and communities.
But he sees religion as a source of strength and guidance for men.
Right. It's like he's saying that religion can help ground men and give them direction in a world that often seems, chaotic and confusing.
That makes sense, especially in a world where traditional gender roles are being questioned and redefined.
Exactly. He uses examples of communities like the Amish and Orthodox Jews, who he believes have thrived by upholding these traditional values.
Right. It's like he's saying, look, these communities are doing something right.
Yeah. He sees them as proof that a more traditional way of life can lead to stability and fulfillment, especially for men.
It's an interesting perspective, for sure.
It is. He's not afraid to challenge, what he sees as the prevailing feminist narrative, arguing that the push for gender equality has gone too far and has actually led to the emasculation of men and the breakdown of the family structure.
That's a pretty bold claim.
It is. Does he back it up with any evidence, or is it just his opinion?
Well, he does present some evidence, although it's mostly anecdotal.
Okay.
He shares stories of men who have lost their jobs because of what he calls false accusations. Men who have been financially ruined by divorce settlements he believes are biased against them. And men who have become depressed and withdrawn because they feel like they no longer have a place in society.
So he's using these personal stories to illustrate the larger point he's making.
True. He's trying to show how these societal trends are actually playing out in the lives of real men.
It's clear he feels very strongly about this issue, and he's not afraid to, express his concerns, even if they're controversial. But he also recognizes that not all men fit neatly into this, traditional mold.
It's true.
He talks about the importance of men being emotionally available, expressing their feelings, and being present in their relationships.
So it's not just about being tough and stoic.
Right. He's advocating for a more well-rounded approach to masculinity, one that embraces both strength and vulnerability.
That makes sense. It's about being a whole person, not just conforming to a stereotype.
Exactly. He emphasizes that true strength comes from vulnerability, from being able to acknowledge your weaknesses and ask for help when you need it.
That's a really important message, especially for men who are often taught to suppress their emotions.
Absolutely. He's challenging those traditional notions of masculinity and encouraging men to embrace the full spectrum of their emotions and experiences.
It's a more nuanced perspective on masculinity than you might expect.
Definitely. And he acknowledges that the modern world presents these unique challenges for men.
Like what kind of challenges?
Well, he talks about the pressure to conform to these unrealistic expectations, the erosion of traditional male roles, and the constant bombardment of messages that tell men they're toxic, privileged, and unnecessary.
Wow, that's a lot to deal with.
Yes. He even uses the term the rise of the soft man.
The soft man.
Yeah. To describe what he sees as a dangerous trend where men are being encouraged to be more passive emotional and less assertive.
Interesting. So he sees this as a negative development.
He does. He believes that it's weakening men and making them less capable of fulfilling their roles in society.
But does he offer any solutions, or is he just complaining about the problem?
No, he definitely offers solutions. He urges men to reclaim their agency, to educate themselves about their rights, to seek support from like-minded communities, and to actively resist the forces that are trying to emasculate them.
So he's calling for men to take action, to stand up for themselves and for their values.
Exactly. He calls for a return to traditional values, for men to embrace their strength and to stand up for what they believe in.
It's a call to action, a rallying cry for men to step up and take control of their lives and their destinies.
Right. He seems to believe that men have the power to change their own lives and to create a better future for themselves and their children.
That's empowering.
It is. And he doesn't just focus on individual action. He also calls for systemic changes
Oh.
to the legal system, child support laws, custody arrangements, and the way society views and treats fathers.
So he's looking for broader societal shifts.
Yes, he argues that we need a system that recognizes the importance of fathers and that supports their involvement in their children's lives.
That makes sense. It's about creating a more equitable system for everyone involved.
Right. He even goes so far as to suggest that we need a cultural shift, a reevaluation of the roles and expectations of men in the 21st century.
Wow, that's a big ask.
It is. It's a bold vision, but one that's rooted in a deep concern for the well-being of children, families, and society as a whole.
I can respect that, even if I don't agree with everything he's saying.
Me too. It's important to consider different perspectives, even if they challenge our own beliefs. Now, switching gears a bit, I think it's important to highlight the author's perspective on the financial consequences of divorce, which he argues can be particularly devastating for men.
Yeah, divorce can be a financial minefield.
It can. And he lays out the realities of alimony, child support, and the division of assets in a way that's both informative and eye-opening. He doesn't shy away from controversial topics like paternity fraud.
Right.
And he's very critical of the current child support system, which he believes often incentivizes women to seek sole custody, even when it's not in the best interest of the child.
That's a serious...
It is. He claims that the system is designed to keep men financially dependent on their ex-partners, creating this cycle of poverty and resentment.
So he sees it as a system that's rigged against men.
In a way, yes. And he doesn't just focus on the legal aspects. He also talks about the emotional and psychological toll these financial burdens can have on men.
Right. It's not just about the money. It's about the feeling of being trapped and powerless.
Exactly. He provides examples of men who have been financially ruined by what he claims are unfair divorce settlements.
So he's showing the real-world impact of these policies.
He is. He really drives home the point that divorce can be a financial catastrophe, especially for men who are often expected to be the primary breadwinners. But, as always, he offers practical advice for men who might be facing these challenges.
That's good. So what does he suggest?
Well, he emphasizes seeking legal counsel from attorneys who specialize in men's rights, understanding the laws surrounding divorce and child support, and negotiating fair settlements.
So being informed and proactive.
Right. He also encourages men to be proactive in managing their finances.
Okay.
To create budgets, to track expenses, and to explore alternative income sources.
So it's about taking control of your financial...
Exactly. He wants men to be prepared and to have a plan, because he believes that financial independence is essential for men to regain their footing after divorce. He also recognizes the emotional and psychological impact of divorce.
Yeah, divorce can be really tough emotionally.
It can. He shares his own personal experiences of going through a divorce. You know, the feelings of grief, loss, anger, and betrayal that he struggled with.
So he's speaking from personal...
He is. He talks about the social stigma that often surrounds divorced men and how they're often seen as failures.
That's unfortunate.
It is. But he challenges those stereotypes, encouraging men to seek support from friends, family, or therapists to process their emotions in healthy ways and to not be afraid to ask for help.
That's really important. It's okay to not be okay.
Exactly. He's emphasizing the importance of self-care and emotional well-being.
Which is often overlooked.
It is.
Yeah.
So while he acknowledges the pain and hardship of divorce, he also sees it as an opportunity for growth and self-discovery.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he encourages men to reevaluate their lives, their priorities, and their goals.
So it's about turning a negative experience into a positive one.
Right, but using that experience to learn and grow and to create a better future for yourself.
I like that perspective.
Me too. He also emphasizes the importance of self-care, you know, taking care of their physical, mental, and emotional health during this difficult time.
Self-care is crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about prioritizing your own well-being so you can come out of this experience stronger and more resilient.
It's a message of hope and resilience.
Exactly. He's encouraging men to rebuild their lives and to find new meaning and purpose.
That's powerful.
It is. This kind of leads into another important theme he explores, the war on fatherhood.
War on fatherhood.
Yeah. He argues that fathers are being increasingly marginalized and demonized in society, that their roles as protectors, providers, and disciplinarians are being undermined by what he calls feminist ideologies and progressive agendas.
That's a strong statement.
It is. And he provides examples of how he sees this war playing out, from the way fathers are often portrayed in the media as bumbling idiots to the education system's focus on mothers as the primary caregiver.
So he's saying that there's a systemic bias against fathers.
Exactly. He claims it's all part of a larger effort to dismantle the traditional family structure, which he believes is the foundation of a stable and thriving.
So he sees this as a threat to society as a whole.
He does. And he argues that this attack on fatherhood isn't just harmful to men, but also to children, who he believes need the love, guidance, and discipline of both parents.
That makes sense. Children need both parents in their life.
Right. He even cites studies that show the negative impact of fatherlessness on children, including higher rates of poverty, crime, and mental health issues.
So he's backing up his claims with research.
He is. This is a pretty dire picture he's painting. But as always, he doesn't just leave it at that. He offers solutions for fathers who want to fight back and reclaim their rightful place in their children's lives.
Oh, that's good. So what does he suggest?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of being present, involved, and engaged fathers.
Okay.
Of fighting for their parental rights and of setting positive examples for their children to follow.
So it's about being active and involved father.
Exactly. He wants fathers to be proactive, to challenge the stereotypes, and to speak out against the injustices they face.
That takes courage.
It does. He encourages fathers to form their own communities, support groups, and organizations to advocate for their rights and to push back against the forces trying to silence them.
So it's about collective action and advocacy.
Exactly. He's really urging fathers to take a stand and to fight for their role in their children's lives and in society as a whole.
It's a powerful message.
It is. And it's clear that this is an issue he feels very strongly about. He's passionate about empowering fathers and about ensuring that their voices are heard.
That's admirable.
And he ties this back to his overall argument about the need for a cultural shift, a reevaluation of the roles and expectations of men in the 21st century.
Right, so it's about changing the way we think about masculinity and fatherhood.
Exactly. He's calling for a more balanced approach, one that recognizes the importance of fathers and supports their involvement in their children's lives.
That makes sense. It's about creating a more equitable and just society for everyone.
All right, this has been a really thought-provoking discussion. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. What are some of the things that stand out to you?
Well, what really strikes me is the author's combination of personal experiences, philosophical arguments, and practical advice. He's not just complaining about the problem. He's offering concrete solutions and empowering men to take action.
I agree. He's definitely passionate about this topic, and he presents his arguments in a way that's both compelling and accessible.
We've covered a lot of ground in this episode, but there's still much more to explore. In part 3, we'll delve deeper into the author's perspective on the future of men and what he calls a gynocentric world. We'll also examine his critique of feminism and his vision for a new definition of masculinity.
So we've spent the last 2 parts really digging into Conrad Reicher's Revealing the Truth. And I'm sure you've noticed this recurring theme, this idea that men are facing some serious challenges in today's society. In this final part, I'm curious to hear more about the author's vision for the future of men. He paints this pretty bleak picture of what he calls a gynocentric world.
What exactly does he mean by that? And what does he think it means for men?
Well, he uses that term, gynocentric, to describe a world where, he believes the focus has shifted so dramatically towards women's needs and perspectives that men are often left feeling lost, marginalized, even demonized. He argues that this has led to an imbalance of power where traditional masculine values are devalued and men are pressured to conform to, a more feminine ideal.
He even suggests that, some of this is intentional, that there are forces at play that are actively working to emasculate men and strip them of their power and purpose.
Yeah, he points to things like, the way men are often portrayed in the media, the emphasis on sensitivity and emotional expression in education, and even the legal system, which he believes often favors women, especially in family courts.
Right.
He ties this back to his argument about the war on men, suggesting that this gynocentric shift is part of a larger societal trend that's eroding traditional masculinity. It's a pretty provocative argument, and I imagine some people might find it a bit extreme. But to be fair, he does offer solution. He doesn't just leave us with a sense of doom and gloom.
Oh, absolutely. He actually lays out a pretty clear roadmap for how he believes men can navigate this, challenging landscape. He calls for a return to traditional masculine values, things like strength, stoicism, leadership, providing for one's family. And he encourages men to embrace those values, to find positive male role models, to join men's groups and engage in activities that foster traditional masculinity. He even suggests that men need to stop apologizing for being men and start celebrating their unique qualities and contributions to society.
It's almost like a call to action, a rallying cry for men to reclaim their masculinity and fight back against the forces that are trying to diminish them. Now, I know we can't talk about this book without addressing the elephant in the room, the author's views on feminism. He's pretty critical of what he calls radical feminism, isn't he?
He is. Yes, he's quite outspoken about his belief that this form of feminism has gone too far in demonizing men and undermining traditional gender roles. He argues that it's created this climate of hostility towards men, making them feel like they're constantly walking on eggshells and afraid to express themselves authentically.
He even claims that this hostility has, seeped into the legal system, creating a bias against men in family courts.
Right. However, it's worth pointing out that he doesn't condemn all forms of feminism.
Okay.
He acknowledges that the early waves of feminism, which fought for things like women's right to vote and own property, were really important, necessary movements.
He even expresses support for some aspects of the second wave, like equal pay for equal work, reproductive rights.
Right, exactly. But he believes that feminism has lost its way in recent decades, becoming more focused on attacking men than on achieving, true equality.
That's a pretty controversial stance, and I'm sure it's one that will spark a lot of debate. But I think it's important to hear these different perspectives, even if they challenge our own beliefs.
I agree. It's crucial to approach these conversations, with open minds and a willingness to listen to viewpoints that might differ from our own.
So given his critique of feminism, what does the author propose as a solution to this perceived imbalance between men and women?
Well, he advocates for a more balanced approach, one that recognizes the unique qualities and contributions of both men and women without demonizing either gender. He believes we need to move away from this us versus them mentality that he sees as so prevalent in contemporary gender discourse.
He also suggests that we need to redefine masculinity for the 21st century, one that embraces, strength and assertiveness, but also compassion, empathy, and emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
He wants men to feel empowered to be their full selves without shame or apology.
Right.
That's a really interesting idea. So to sum up, he's essentially calling for a reevaluation of how we view gender roles, a return to traditional masculine values, and a more balanced approach to the relationship between men and women.
That's a good summary, yeah. He's presenting a vision for a future where men can thrive as both strong and sensitive, successful and fulfilled.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, and I have to say it's been a really thought-provoking exploration of family law from a man's perspective. Riker's book certainly doesn't shy away from controversy, but it also raises some really important questions about the challenges men face in today's society.
And it's a book that's sure to spark debate, and I think that's a good thing. These are conversations that need to be had. Riker's book provides a valuable contribution to that dialogue.
If you're interested in exploring these ideas further, you can find Revealing the Truth, Understanding Family Law from a Man's Perspective by Conrad Riker on Amazon Kindle and Google Playbooks. It's a book that'll challenge your assumptions and leave you with a lot to think about.
Whether you agree with all of his arguments or not, Riker's book is a reminder that there are always multiple perspectives on these really complex issues, and it's important to be open to hearing different viewpoints.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic to explore. Until then, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.